We're on your side tonight remembering 9/11. If you aren't mid-20s or older, that is hard. If you're in high school or college today, you rely on others to tell the stories of that day. But that's not to say today's young people haven't been impacted. Our Dedrick Russell has a community conversation with two students at Queens University.
So I was about 6 months old, and my mom tells me, so I was we were in our house, and just my grandmother was taking care of me while my mother was getting ready for the day, and my grandmother pulled my mom aside and was like, Christine, you have to see this, you have to see this. My mom was born and raised in New York, and so I think that hit a little bit closer for home because it was, the city she grew up in, and she, saw those buildings, and she, was by them.
I was told that I was in preschool at the time, and I know that my parents know pretty vividly where they were, as most of the rest of the world does.
Talk to me about the emotion of your parents, because your parents knew people who died in 9/11.
Whenever we're, sitting around as a family watching documentaries, they're tearing up because it was such an intense feeling for them.
These students will always remember 9/11 and what happened to the person responsible for it.
I remember pretty vividly, the day that Osama bin Laden was killed. I remember, running through the halls of my school. All these fifth graders are super excited about this terrorist that we just know was the root of the attack, dead.
How did you process all of that?
I think a lot of it was talking to my parents because they're the ones that, introduced me to the fact that something like this, the biggest terrorism that ever happened on U.S. soil, I think that really talking to them about how they felt about it helped me kind of understand how I felt about it.
Even though I don't have an immediate direct connection to 9/11, I think about, all the people, in my family that, that I consider, an everyday hero. I think about the people, in military, police. My grandfather was an officer in the NYPD for years and years, and so I think about, paramedic personnel and all those people who were involved in, I feel for them.
You're majoring in nursing.
And one of the big things that has attracted me to this career is I want to be there for people in the most dire of times. I'll be involved in working with people who are having the best days of their life and the worst days of their life.
And Rye, you went to New York, right? Talk
Yes,
to me about your trip to New York, and you went to the site of 9/11. Talk to me about that trip.
So I remember, going to Ground Zero. I remember seeing the waterfalls and reading all the names, and I was 9 at the time, so I knew what happened. I knew a little more about the effect it had on the world and the people. My parents, my family. My parents had friends that they actually showed me on the memorial, their names, because they, passed away in 9/11.
So what's the conversation with your other peers? What are they saying? What are those conversations like when you talk about 9/11?
I think a lot of the conversation I have with my peers is just trying to decipher what I make of it and what it means to me, and then, solutions. I'm a very solution-oriented person, and so just kind of looking at, what are things that we can do to kind of, mediate so we can make sure this doesn't happen again.
I feel like a lot of kids growing up with us all kind of, like Emily said, form their own opinions. I'd say towards the beginning, I remember a lot of anger and frustration. I'd say towards, Muslims, and that conversation of, seeing someone in a headdress walking down the street to school, or seeing someone at school with a headdress, and kind of friends targeting a little bit of anger towards that.
So I think, that was the quick fix was, we group a whole group of people together, and it's them. And so I think there's kind of a lot of, erasing and resetting of our own mindset that we, as a nation had to do to remind ourselves that, it's unfortunate, and that although, there are bad people in every kind of group or class. And so just reminding ourselves of that, and, just independent of religion and race and creed, just reminding ourselves that we're all humans at the end of the day, and there are going to be, good, amazing, incredible people from each of those categories, but there's also going to be a few that, are just not representative of the whole.
So is it easy now for you to see a Muslim and not, have hatred?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think we can have world peace?
I think it's a continuous effort. I think, a lot of it comes down to just reviving a sense of patriotism. One big thing that 9/11 brought us and taught us was the power of unity, and even in the most vulnerable and terrific, horrible times, the power of coming together and not looking at each other and judging by race and by religion and what other, categories.
I think that eventually it might be attainable, sustainable. I don't know if it's all a learning process. If we can unite and not only as nations but as a world, I think that it's definitely possible. But I think that takes a lot of negotiation and acceptance.